The United States $100 bill is a denomination of United States currency featuring statesman, inventor, diplomat and American founding father Benjamin Franklin on the obverse of the bill. On the reverse of the banknote is an image of Independence Hall. The $100 bill is the largest denomination that has been printed since July 13, 1969, when the denominations of $500, $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 were retired. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing says the average life of a $100 bill in circulation is 90 months before it is replaced due to wear and tear. The bills are also commonly referred to as Bens, Benjamins, or Franklins, in reference to the use of Benjamin Franklin's portrait on the denomination, or as C notes, based on the Roman numeral for 100. The bill is one of two denominations printed today that does not feature a President of the United States. The other is the $10 bill, featuring Alexander Hamilton. It is also the only denomination today to feature a building not located in Washington, D.C., that being Independence Hall, located in Philadelphia, on the reverse. The time on the clock of Independence Hall on the reverse, according to the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, showed approximately 4:10 on the older contemporary notes and 10:30 on the Series 2009A notes released in 2013. $100 bills are delivered by Federal Reserve banks in mustard-colored straps. The Series 2009 $100 bill redesign was unveiled on April 21, 2010, and was issued to the public on October 8, 2013. The new bill costs 12.6 cents to produce and has a blue ribbon woven into the center of the currency with 100 and Liberty bells, alternating, that appear when the bill is tilted. The $100 bill comprises 80% of all U.S. currency in circulation, although according to former Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke, more than two-thirds of all $100 notes are held outside the United States. Large-size note history. 1861, 3-year $100 interest-bearing notes were issued that paid 7.3% interest per year. These notes were not primarily designed to circulate, and were payable to the original purchaser of the dollar bill. The obverse of the note featured a portrait of General Winfield Scott. 1862, the first $100 United States note was issued. Variations of this note were issued that resulted in slightly different wording on the reverse. The note was issued again in series of 1863. 1863, both 1 and 2 and 1/2 year interest-bearing notes were issued that paid 5% interest. The 1-year interest-bearing notes featured a vignette of George Washington in the center, and allegorical figures representing the Guardian to the right and Justice to the left. The 2-year notes featured a vignette of the U.S. Treasury building in the center, a farmer and mechanic to the left, and sailors firing a cannon to the right. 1863, the first $100 gold certificates were issued with a bald eagle to the left and large green 100 in the middle of the obverse. The reverse was distinctly printed in orange instead of green like all other U.S. federal government-issued notes of the time. 1864, compound interest Treasury notes were issued that were intended to circulate for 3 years and paid 6% interest compounded semi-annually. The obverse is similar to the 1863 1-year interest-bearing note. 1869, a new $100 United States note was issued with a portrait of Abraham Lincoln Lincoln on the left of the obverse and an allegorical figure representing architecture on the right. Although this note is technically a United States note, Treasury note appeared on it instead of United States note. 1870, a new $100 gold certificate with a portrait of Thomas Hart Benton on the left side of the obverse was issued. The note was one-sided. 1870, $100 national gold bank notes were issued specifically for payment in gold coin by participating national gold banks. The obverse featured vignettes of Perry leaving the St. Lawrence and an allegorical figure to the right. The reverse featured a vignette of U.S. gold coins. 1875, the reverse of the series of 1869 United States note was redesigned. Also, Treasury note was changed to United States note on the obverse. This note was issued again in series of 1878 and series of 1880. 1878, the first $100 silver certificate was issued with a portrait of James Monroe on the left side of the obverse. The reverse was printed in black ink, unlike any other U.S. federal government-issued dollar bill. 1882, a new and revised $100 gold certificate was issued. The obverse was partially the same as the series 1870 gold certificate. The border design, portrait of Thomas H. Benton, and large word gold and gold-colored ink behind the serial numbers were all retained. The reverse featured a perched bald eagle and a Roman numeral for 100. C. 1890, $100 Treasury or coin notes were issued for government purchases of silver bullion from the silver mining industry. The note featured a portrait of Admiral David G. Farragut. The note was also nicknamed a watermelon note because of the watermelon-shaped 0s in the large numeral 100 on the reverse. The large numeral 100 was surrounded by an ornate design that occupied almost the entire note. 1891, the reverse of the series of 1890 Treasury note was redesigned because the Treasury felt that it was too busy, which would make it too easy to counterfeit. More open space was incorporated into the new design. 1891, the obverse of the $100 silver certificate was slightly revised with some aspects of the design changed. The reverse was completely redesigned and also began to be printed in green ink. 1914, the first $100 Federal Reserve note was issued with a portrait of Benjamin Franklin on the obverse and allegorical figures representing labor, plenty, America, peace, and commerce on the reverse. 1922, the series of 1880 gold certificate was reissued with an obligation to the right of the bottom left serial number on the obverse. Small size note history. 1929, under the series of 1928, all U.S. currency was changed to its current size and began to carry a standardized design. All variations of the $100 bill would carry the same portrait of Benjamin Franklin, same border design on the obverse, and the same reverse with a vignette of Independence Hall. The $100 bill was issued as a Federal Reserve note with a green seal and serial numbers and as a gold certificate with a golden seal and serial numbers. 1933, as an emergency response to the Great Depression, additional money was pumped into the American economy through Federal Reserve Bank notes issued under series of 1929. This was the only small-sized $100 bill that had a slightly different border design on the obverse. The serial numbers and seal on it were brown. 1934, the redeemable in gold clause was removed from Federal Reserve notes due to the U.S. withdrawing from the gold standard. 1934, special $100 gold certificates were issued for non-public Federal Reserve bank-to-bank transactions. These notes featured a reverse printed in orange instead of green like all other small-sized notes. The wording on the obverse was also changed changed to $100 in gold payable to the bearer on demand as authorized by law. 1950. Many minor aspects on the obverse of the $100 Federal Reserve note were changed. Most noticeably, the Treasury seal, gray numeral 100, and the Federal Reserve seal were made smaller also. The Federal Reserve seal had spikes added around it. 1963. Because dollar bills were no longer redeemable in silver, beginning with Series 19638, will pay to the bearer on demand was removed from the obverse of the $100 Federal Reserve note and the obligation was shortened to its current wording. This note is legal tender for all debts public and private. Also, "In God We Trust" was added to the reverse. 1966. The first and only small-sized $100 United States note was issued with a red seal and serial numbers. It was the first of all United States currency to use the new U.S. Treasury seal with wording in English instead of Latin, like the Series 1963 $2 and $5 United States notes. It lacked "will pay to the bearer on demand" on the obverse and featured the motto "In God We Trust" on the reverse. The $100 United States note was issued due to legislation that specified a certain dollar amount of United States notes that were to remain in circulation. Because the $2 and $5 United States notes were soon to be discontinued, the dollar amount of United States notes would drop, thus warranting the issuing of this note. 1990. The first New Age anti-counterfeiting measures were introduced under Series 1990 with microscopic printing around Franklin's portrait and a metallic security strip on the left side of the bill. March 25, 1996, the first major design change since 1929 took place with the adoption of a contemporary-styled layout. The main intent of the new design was to deter counterfeiting. New security features included a watermark of Franklin to the right side of the bill, optically variable ink that changed from green to black when viewed at different angles, a higher quality and enlarged portrait of Franklin, and hard-to-reproduce fine-line printing around Franklin's portrait and Independence Hall. Older security features such as interwoven red and blue silk fibers, microprinting, and a plastic security thread were kept. The individual Federal Reserve Bank seal was changed to a unified Federal Reserve seal along with an additional prefix letter being added to the serial number W. The first of the Series 1996 bills were produced in October 1995. February 2007, the first $100 bills from the Western Currency Facility in Fort Worth, Texas are produced, almost 16 years after the first notes from the facility were produced. The shipment makes the $100 bill the most recently added production to the facility's lineup. 4.6 billion notes were produced at the facility with Series 2006 and Cabral Paulson signatures, including about 4.15 million star notes. October 8, 2013, the newest $100 bill was announced on April 21, 2010, and entered circulation on October 8, 2013. In addition to design changes introduced in 1996, the obverse features the brown quill that was used to sign the Declaration of Independence, feigned phrases from the Declaration of Independence, a bell in the inkwell that appears and disappears depending on the angle at which the bill is viewed, teal background color, a borderless portrait of Benjamin Franklin, a blue 3D security ribbon on which images of Liberty bells shift into numerical designations of 100 as the note is tilted, and to the left of Franklin, small yellow 100s whose zeros formed the Urian constellation. The reverse features small yellow Urian 100s and has the fine lines removed from around the vignette of Independence Hall. These notes were issued as Series 2009A with Rio Skytner signatures. Many of these changes are intended not only to thwart counterfeiting but to also make it easier to quickly check authenticity and help vision-impaired people. Removal of larger value bills. The Federal Reserve announced the removal of large denominations of United States currency from circulation on July 14, 1969. The $100 bill was the largest denomination left in circulation. All the Federal Reserve notes produced from Series 1928 up to before Series 1969 of the $100 denomination added up to $23.1708 billion. Since some banknotes had been destroyed, and the population was 200 million at the time, there was less than one $100 banknote per capita circulating. As of June 30, 1969, the U.S. coins and banknotes in circulation of all denominations were worth $50.936 billion, of which $4.929 billion was circulating overseas. So the currency and coin circulating within the United States was $230 per capita. Since 1969, the demand for U.S. currency has greatly increased. The total amount of circulating currency and coin passed $1 trillion in March 2011. Despite the degradation in the value of the U.S. $100 banknote, and despite competition from some more valuable foreign notes, there are no plans to reissue banknotes above $100. The widespread use of electronic means to conduct large-scale cash transactions today has made large-scale physical cash transactions obsolete and therefore, from the government's point of view, unnecessary for the conduct of legitimate business. Quoting T. Allison, assistant to the board of the Federal Reserve System, in his October 8, 1998 testimony before the U.S. House of Representatives Subcommittee on Domestic and International Monetary Policy, Committee on Banking and Financial Services, there are public policies against reissuing the $500 note, mainly because many of those efficiency gains, such as lower shipment and storage costs, would accrue not only to legitimate users of banknotes, but also to money launderers, tax evaders and a variety of other lawbreakers who use currency in the criminal activity. While it is not at all clear that the volume of illegal drugs sold or the amount of tax evasion would necessarily increase just as a consequence of the availability of a larger dollar denomination bill, it no doubt is the case that if wrongdoers were provided with an easier mechanism to launder the funds and hide the profits, enforcement authorities could have a harder time detecting certain illicit transactions occurring in cash.